And I just find it very convenient that her dream was pretty accurate.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Let's stop playing games, guys. I need somebody to step up and be an alpha. Be somebody to be a leader. Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it.
Is there anything that either of you wants to say about justice and what it would be in this case?
No.
No, I'm not going to comment.
We're not commenting on that. Yeah.
We're down one, unfortunately, but we're going to move on.
Yeah.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with the cold hard hatred. I can feel the vibration. Feet in the streets, it's a new sensation. I wanna break faces on the pavement. I wanna make greatness look complacent. Adrenaline awakened, I can taste it. We can make an impact, grab and then take it. Like a disease, bring to their knees. Take the fantasy. Just like a weed, spread into the streets. Time to make them bleed. Cause we just want retribution. Let's go light up the darkness. Make true of an empty promise. Flip cards into weak and harmless. Take to the streets and turn them to a mosh pit. Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
Turn on your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Give power to the collective in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice and control.
Here we go.
Welcome to the freak show, the best in town.
What is going on, Hive? I hope that everybody had an awesome weekend and their Monday is off to an incredible start. I already know what you all are thinking because I'm sitting here thinking the exact same thing. Holy shit. Brian Kohberger just told the New York Times that he wants his guilty plea back, that it was built on false promises, a bunch of misinformation and lies, essentially, something that we've been calling out for years. And to finally see Brian Kohberger talk. Wow. And the statement that he made saying that my actual innocence is the truth. The state's narrative is a work of fiction and has not evolved since the PCA. He even used the words broken plea. However, that will be a conversation we will get to later here in the stream. If this is your first time tuning in, I'm your host, Bertie. I go live weeknights at 7 p.m. Central. Welcome to the Hive Mind. We have been thinking past the headlines for a very long time in the Idaho 4 case. Nothing's going to change. We are going to continue to do so. The Hive, aka the chat, you can say whatever you want as long as you're not trolling, spamming, or threatening. I got the best mods on YouTube, being formerly known as Beck, Discord Dog, Luna Bliss, and the UFO Dog. They will give you enough leash to hang yourself. Just know if you dish it out, everybody in here reserves the right to dish it on back. It's a little carved out corner of the internet where true freedom of speech, as long as, I guess, as much as the platform that we're on, being YouTube, allows us to have, still exists. And so as you all are filing in, and before we get into tonight's stream, please go ahead, do all the things, hit like, hit subscribe. If you have not, that is the best way to support this channel and support this stream. If you would like to screenshot this so that when the live concludes, all you got to do is go to your Photos app, tap on the QR code. That'll bring up the Hive merch store, the Spotify playlist for all of the intro songs, my TikTok, and our Discord. And I would highly, highly, highly recommend you join our Discord, folks. If you were in our Discord today, you saw how quickly this news popped off in there. And so that is the place to be. Also, if you would like access to the emojis in the live chat, as well as a loyalty badge next to your name and access to the live chat on select Saturdays, the mods will be dropping the Hive Plus link. Now, everybody can still watch all of the streams, but on Saturdays, I will shut down the chat for those Hive Plus members. Now, I am going to go ahead and say what's up to everybody, but first, I am so curious to see what the results of this poll was that I had in the chat, and that was, what do you think the most likely next plot twist is going to be in this case? And the final results are in. Alternate suspect emerges, came in at 49%, a lab tech whistleblower at 19%, a key witness recanting what they said at 18%, and unfortunately 14% of people said, well, they're just going to pile more federal charges on top of him. And I'm going to be breaking down all of the documents that dropped today. We're going to be talking about that. And then we're also going to be talking about something that I haven't heard many people say yet, as far as what this news means and what we have to watch out for. If you've tuned into me for a while, you know that I have said for a very long time, keep your head on a swivel, folks. They will dangle the carrot out in front of you. And just when you think that it's a big break in the case, stuff will completely change. I'm not saying that that's what's happening right now, because this is something completely different. I mean, this is the first time we are seeing Brian Kohberger making a statement and actually telling somebody that I am innocent, where it is written in black and white by the New York Times and reported right before the Netflix documentary comes out on this Friday, which we know was about to just solidify the PCA even more so, because that story has not changed. It's just the same story over and over again. But that is something that we're going to be talking about tonight. What do we have to keep an eye out for? What is the trap that we cannot fall into? And what do we do next? So let's see who's all tuned in. We got Valley, Splendid Melancholy, Lisa Marie, Lisa West, Sweet Sativa, Jamie, Tripsy Turvy, Curly Fried, Chanel, Luna, Crazy Bird Lady, Troy, Not As Dumb As You Look, River Bear Teacup, Zero Fucks Given, Sincerely Gen X, Beyond Reasonable Doubt 3, Pineapple Diana. We got Kim Mama, True to It, Flat Creek Ranch, Mindful Haze, Green, Eclectic, Sherry, Tattoo Gal, Crises, Lisa Marie, Mallory, Ali Gito, Sarah, Mary Tyler, It's All Sus, Chaos and Christina, Hilarious, Discord Dawn, Assman, Unredacted, 420 Smang, 420 Smang. Sorry if I butchered that one. Peck the Little Llama Mama, Green, Eclectic again, butchered it twice. Mel's Bells, Jennifer, RSN X Red, Luna Rose, Caden, Curriculum and Crime, Halo Art, Nikki B, Olivia, Lucille, Yup, Tracy, Blue Eyed Candy, Dodie Doe, 348 Natty, Danger Zone Mandy, Heidi Titties, Heart of Gold, Lady on Teeth, Growth Redacted, Lovely Me, Nene, Jess of the Nest. Man, we got a lot of people in here this evening already. This is great to see. And the real Nancy Drew, Curiously Jules, Zodu Dots, Shawley, Redacted, Janice, Strutter, Sleuth and Sweetheart, MySpace Queen, Majestic Princess, Brandy, and let's get one more. Mildly Playing Character. How are you doing, Aurora? Thanks for tuning in this evening. So, I don't have an official question of the day slide, but what I would like to do right now is just take a second and I want to hear from you all. So type into the chat, when you heard this news, what was your first thought? And I will go ahead and I will put them up on the screen and I will read them out loud. But I am very curious to hear and see what was going through everybody's heads. Miss Kim said 3 phases: new trial, death charge, and shocking new perps. Simply Samantha and Tripsy Turvy both said finally. Mandy said finally. Ashley said, oh, shit. Daniela said, holy shit. Tattoo Gal said happy dance. Abigail said absolutely insane. Shantae Nicole Cray Cray said, I'm very curious. I'm excited for him. Allie said finally. Katie the Gardener said, yes, I knew it. Dandy Deb said, no, I thought of you first. Oh, nice. Thank you, Dandy Deb. Appreciate that. WV Mom, ecstatic. Pink Princess says, holy fuck. Chloe said, excited. Justice. Full Set Slayer said, finally. Monkey Lady said, about time. Shawley Redacted said, Psyop Ray is done. Oh, man. A lot of people are just finally. Motherfunker said, about damn time. Real Nancy Drew said, the beer pong table matters. I've been saying. Lisa said, I cried. It's all sus. Said, ironic timing was my first thought. Jess to the Nest said, I thought it was fake. Lauren said, about time. Meep and Bubbles, another person with their first thought about the Hive. Katie said, finally. Crazy Bird Lady said, I screamed and scared the kids. Yeah. Energy in here is perfect right now. I can absolutely feel that everybody feels a little bit of vindication. You know, 1 year after they closed the book and 1 year after they told the entire country that this is over, shut up, move along, shame. How dare you ask questions, you stupid conspiracy theorist peasant. Don't you hear your overlords on the mainstream media telling you what to think and telling you what to say? And don't we have all of our NPCs on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and any other social media platform attacking you in the comments for saying something different than we have? It didn't work. It will never work. And this is a massive win, everybody. This is a massive win. And while it's important that we react to the news and we have this moment, we have to continue to think. Okay? And that is something that is kind of hard for me to say because I'm just excited as you guys are too. But this is where we have to be very strategic as far as what do we look at now? What are the steps of Bryant actually retracting his plea? What happens after that? Is the judge going to approve it? Are they going to actually have a fair and new trial? Is there going to be anything that could hinder this? And we're going to be answering those questions. But for anybody that hasn't seen the official statement yet, I went ahead and I put a slide together, and I'm going to go ahead and I will read this out loud for everybody. Let me just get the layout good. Here we go. Over a year later, it is self-evident that in State versus Kohberger, justice was not served. Unanswered questions seem to multiply with each piece of discovery unsealed, and the public demands the truth. Unfortunately, the truth shall never be derived from the state's myopic narrative, a work of fiction which has yet to evolve since the PCA was released nearly 4 years ago, and its faulty premises were never challenged at trial. Circumnavigated by a broken plea, the trial never provided the public the clarity conducive to closure, and justice shall remain objectively miscarried unless that plea is withdrawn. I hereby declare my intention to enter a not guilty plea and welcome the state the opportunity to prove their case at trial, as well as to again file for the death penalty. My actual innocence is my truth, and the plea hinged on by false promises and blatant disinformation must be withdrawn. Thank you for all who believe in my innocence and continue to critically analyze this case. I send my love to my family who have never wavered in their belief in who I am, their belief in my innocence. Brian Kohberger, sent on July 26th, 2026 at 9:23 p.m. Damn. That is so well written. I just want to highlight a couple of things in here. Brian Kohberger says it with his entire chest when he says, I declare my intention to enter a not guilty plea. And you know what? I welcome the state the opportunity to prove their case at trial. And you know what? Throw the death penalty back on the table, because my actual innocence is the truth. Your plea deal hinged on false promises, blatant disinformation. I have to withdraw it. Go ahead. Throw the death penalty on the table. I don't care. We're going to trial. The other part that I found very interesting is the part about thank you for all who believe in my innocence and continue to critically analyze the case. In my opinion, that means that Brian Kohberger himself or somebody close to him has absolutely been watching the landscape of the internet, channels like this, channels like many other in the Idaho 4 community. And I feel like that was a little nod to people like us who have tirelessly looked at every little thing about this case. And so, Brian, if you're seeing this when you get out of prison after being exonerated, I feel like the Hive would be an awesome place for you to come and give an interview. Doubt you'll see this, but by the slim chance that you do, it is on the record now. But wow, very, very well written. Motherfunker says, I'm sure it feels so good that so many people support him. Mindful Hayes says, hell yes, Hive. Jay Wiswall says, I'm sure his family's filling him in. Smiling Sleuth, how are you doing? And Beyond Reasonable Doubt, thank you so much for the big super chat, $50, congratulating the Hive. Phoenix Rising, thank you for the super chat. Said, I felt excited and a bit of hope for once. I knew he kept silent to let the truth come out all on its own. It always does. He knew what to do. He's smart. Man. What a day. Alyssa for president said false promises. Well, what are the false promises? I agree. What did they promise Brian Kohberger? What was Brian told that would happen that seemed to change or never happen? It's been discussed in here many times that something must have went wrong. Something changed dramatically. Or at least it certainly seemed like it did when the plea came out of nowhere. And now, almost a year to date, we see Brian Kohberger making this statement. Here are a couple of quotes that I found very interesting in Brian Kohberger's statement. Again, that was something that I believe he had sent to the New York Times. And those quotes are myopic narrative, work of fiction, and unanswered questions seem to multiply with each piece of discovery unsealed. I don't know about you all. That's something that we've said. The more they release, the more questions we have. How is that even possible at this point? How is it possible to have 68 terabytes of data and publicly all of these documents unsealed, all of this video, all of this audio, and the only thing that really came out of all of that is how could this have been Brian Kohberger as far as committing the murders? And if it's not him, then who did it? And there's very little clarity as far as who else could have done it. Now, I know we all have our theories and our ideas, but this next quote, you want to put your tinfoil hats on for this. And I'm sure, actually, I know I am not the only one who read this next quote and thought to myself, what the hell? What are the chances of that?
Please retrieve your nearest tinfoil hat. Place hat firmly on your head.
Because if you don't know, if you do not know, the book that came out by Christopher Whitcomb, who actually did an interview here in the Hive with us, wrote a book titled Broken Plea. And I find it very strange that Brian Kohberger used the quote, circumnavigated by a broken plea. I'm a little bit glitchy, so 1 second. All right, hopefully that fixed it. But, man, justice shall remain objectively miscarried unless that plea is withdrawn. Now, I'm not out there saying that Brian Kohberger and Christopher Whitcomb worked together on that book. But when you start stacking up the timing of Christopher Whitcomb, Cy Ray, Dr. Turvey, the other detective that I always forget his name of that went on the custody queens, the title of Christopher Whitcomb's book, the release of the Netflix series, all of the other series that have come out and the books that have been written about the PCA and that narrative, to now have Brian Kohberger the week that another series is going to drop, come out and say this and use the word broken plea or use the words broken plea, and it is rather odd. And at this point, I don't even know necessarily what's going on behind the scenes. I just feel as if that's another one of my spidey senses going off by, man, what are the chances? What are the chances? But again, it could be as simple as he read the book. He read the book, perhaps, and maybe that was a nod to Christopher Whitcomb and the team working behind the scenes, potentially. I said when Broken Plea came out, there's a lot of difference in opinion on this book and its purpose, but I felt as if this was in a way the start to what would be called, or what we called, an authorized leak. Was this the authorized leak? Was that a way to look at it? It did something that sparked a ton of discussion. It had how many more people open their eyes to some things that were wrong about the case that was written by somebody who apparently had insider access to a bunch of documents. And now you see this, and Brian Kohberger changes his plea. The timing of this is wild because think of all of the momentum that Brian Kohberger now has on his side. It also could have been a dig at Chris Whitcomb's book. I didn't even think about that, Sherlock. And Beckstats, yes, I will be getting into that. Say, I have the full statements pulled up that we're going to read. And that is the thing that stuck out to me with the most was that the hair in Ethan's hands. I was like, oh my God. Touch of Gray 09. It's funny you bring that up. Touch of Gray 09 said, reminds me of the Netflix docuseries or show that just dropped that's called Toxic Love Story and how it misdirected the real perp. I would really like to get the guy who investigated the U.S. Marshal onto this stream for an interview. So I'm working on that, kind of just putting that out into the universe, trying to manifest it, because I think that it'd be very interesting to hear how somebody inside of the DOJ not represents, but how they investigate rather somebody like a U.S. Marshal that may be abusing their power and their title. And so if you watched Toxic Love Story, you'll know the guy that I'm talking about. Has anybody noticed, though, the one thing that the mainstream media has not particularly said about this statement by Brian Kohberger's? Okay, so then who did it? I find that to be a little bit weird as far as I've seen. Now, I could have missed something, but I have not seen the mainstream media come out and say, since this statement has made its round and is clearly bubbling up towards the top of every headline now Okay, so if Brian Kohberger didn't do it, where's the objective journalism where they say, then who could have? And what's funny is that a lot of people probably have not been following the documents or any of the stuff that has been going on behind the scenes in the court system, or in the video and in the audio or in all of the interviews, to where this is probably, what's the word that I'm looking for? Cognitive dissonance times a million for those people that have only heard the narrative and now they're seeing this. But it is absolutely crazy. Jeez, I have so many of these super chats at Jules. Thank you to everybody who sent the gold coins, Data, Valley, Simply Samantha, welcome to Hive Plus, Hot Girl Bummer, Duck Sleuth, welcome to Hive Plus, MySpace Queen, TT, Susan, Coco is Nicole, Chaos and Christina said, Birdie, what I heard, I literally screamed online, Birdie, somebody get Birdie. Yes, I still have to check that message because I popped in there when I was at work. But yes, I will be getting to that message. Thank you, Christina. You know, fun fact, Christina and we used to go at it on TikTok. And I hope she's okay with me saying this because I mean this with the utmost respect. But I think I told Christina my theory and it kind of snapped back, and she had said something about victim blaming or whatever the mainstream talking points is. That's here and there. But my comeback was like, oh, wow, you must be so fun at cookouts. You must be so fun at parties, Christina. That's all that I had at that point. But now Christina and I have developed a friendship. We talk a lot. And that is the power of being able to change your mind and critically think. Nature Rocks. Backstat said, I literally ran to the Discord. Duck Sleuth, thank you. Sammy said, I called Boomer screaming. He thought there was smoke. Let's effing go. We need hashtag ProBurger merch. Oh, man. I remember I called Mrs. Birdie and she's like, I have goosebumps. It's so weird. This is one of those moments that I feel like I probably will never forget. I will never forget where I was when I saw this news break that something we have all been diving into for years, every night, 7 p.m. Central, whether it was on TikTok, whether it was on YouTube, wherever we were, everybody showed up here. We dove into this case, and to have the validation in a way that Brian, he's able to talk, he's able to say something. It's just like, wow. Wow. And I know that there's a whole lot of other super chats, guys. I will be getting to those throughout the stream. Thank you to everybody who has sent them. You guys are very kind, and I appreciate that. If the sheath doesn't fit, you must acquit. Christ. Riley Church said, I will remember this day forever. So I'm going to go ahead and try to read this statement. For how well Brian Kohberger writes, he has below average handwriting, and I'm going to go ahead and try to get through some of this chicken scratch that Brian wrote. This is the affidavit of facts in support of post-conviction petition. State of Idaho, County of Ada County, or County of Ada. Brian C. Kohberger, it is hereby declared that during attorney-client discussions, most of which included all members of Brian C. Kohberger's immediate family, petitioner was convinced to falsely confess to capital murder and felony burglary by coercion, disinformation, false promises, and the withholding of exculpatory discovery. The following is material to the inception of the plea. Counsel's failure to inform petitioner of exculpatory discovery received during plea discussions namely clumps of unknown hair found in Ethan Chapin's hands, as well as a failure of further inquiry. 2, oh, that says 1. Sorry. So 2, petitioner was convinced that actual guilt was not an important factor in considering plea acceptance. Petitioner was convinced that actual guilt was not an important factor in considering plea acceptance. Death row was imminent and advised to lie. Petitioner was to get a, quote, legal victory by entering a false plea. 3, a gross misrepresentation of and promises regarding what a life sentence would immediately afford petitioner, and a gross misrepresentation of death row in Idaho, including an elaborate, fabricated story of counsel's horrific experience touring an actual 8x8 death row cell, all communicated to petitioner and his family. Something by IDOC through counsel, thus constituting threats and promises made to induce a plea agreement. Man, I'm sorry that I just struggled to read through that, but holy hell. Think about this line here. Petitioner was convinced to falsely confess to capital murder and felony burglary by coercion, disinformation, false promises, and the withholding of exculpatory discovery. Talks about the clumps of hair in Ethan's hand. Man, and then again, I just think about the timing of how Cy Ray just shut that down. Cy Ray says, that was, I'm going to just say it verbatim, or I'm going to say it what he said. He goes, that is bullshit, what Dr. Turvey said. And to just see Brian come out and put it in words right now. A gross misrepresentation of death row in Idaho, including an elaborate fabricated story of counsel's horrific experience touring an actual 8x8 death row cell. And I remember in Broken Plea, it had talked about how Brian Kohberger was given a tour. And I believe it was Chris Whitcomer who was ever telling the story from Brian Kohberger's team during that tour, said that it was like Brian Kohberger was like a child at an amusement park that was trying to decide whether or not he should get on a roller coaster, I believe is how it was worded. And to think that that's an adult grown man who is on the autism spectrum, and they're saying that as the analogy. So that's quite a decision. And to be given that analogy of like a small child at an amusement park deciding whether or not they're too scared to ride a roller coaster is very strange. Coming from somebody, again, if my memory serves me correctly, it's been a while since I've read the book, but somebody that was close to Brian Kohberger, certainly on his team, and knew about this tour. I can't imagine reading that about myself if I'm innocent. I can't imagine reading a book, for better or worse, right? That's besides the point. I'm just talking about the basis of it. I'm wrongfully convicted where the state has no connection of me and the victims. They have no motive. They have no murder weapon. They have cell phone pings 23 times, but they can't say where I'm at. It's just that my phone connected to certain towers. They can't put me inside of the house. And now, as I'm being lied to and coerced by disinformation and false promises and the withholding of exculpatory evidence, hey, we're going to give you a tour and tell you what life on death row is going to be like. Here's an 8x8 cell. Here's an 8x8 cell. You sure you want to do this? You should probably do this. Take the legal victory, Brian. Take the legal victory. And then to read a book that says you're like a child trying to debate if you're getting on a roller coaster. Jesus. And it was certified under penalty of perjury on July 22nd, 2026, signed Brian C. Kohberger. And Scout, I'm glad you said that. I'd be curious, who thinks that people are going to talk? I'll tell you what, and we're going to go to a not a dark place, but just a messed up place, I guess you could say, here for a second, and put yourself in the shoes or put yourself in the mindset of somebody who may have been peripherally involved, or you know something where maybe you made a prior statement where you said, you know, I was asleep, or you know what, I didn't hear anything. So I can't really tell you much. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I think that my pucker factor would be maxed out. I'd be sweating bullets to try and correct it for the record immediately, because a case this big, you better believe that they are going to uncover every lie. You would hope, given everything that this has gone through and all the money that they're saying to spend of tax dollar money. This is also something too, a little bit off topic, but in regards to Dylan Mortensen, if we do not see anything surrounding the surviving roommates change, I think that it'll confirm a gut feeling that a lot of us have had. And that must be they were given some sort of an immunity deal. Now, I don't know the legal side to this. Maybe there's a lawyer in the chat. I could obviously Google it, but I'll test the Hive's knowledge. If you were given immunity for this case, and let's say that it was immunity with Brian Kohberger taking the plea deal, does that change with information you've given, or does immunity apply to you no matter what happens? And if you guys have not hit that like button, please take a second right now. Just swipe down, just tap it. Leave more touch DNA on the like button than Brian Kohberger left on the sheath. If it was even his DNA, I'd like to see the chain of custody on that DNA too. Jess to the Nest said, I'm assuming it comes with conditions of some sort. I'm just curious. If you were given immunity to give information to the police in an investigation, and the investigation settled in a plea deal, and now the defendant withdrew the plea and is saying that there was other info that would prove him innocent at trial, I always have to say, specifically in Idaho, would the immunity granted to that person who gave info still apply or not? Let's see what this says. Okay, here's what we got. It says, most likely, yes, the immunity would still apply. The defendant withdrawing a guilty plea does not automatically erase immunity already granted to a separate witness or informant. What actually matters, or what matters, is the actual immunity agreement, not whether the defendant's case ended in a plea or later returned to trial. That makes sense. Specifically under Idaho Code 19-11114, a witness may enter a written immunity agreement with the prosecutor that is approved by the district court. Once the person provides protected information, that testimony and information directly or indirectly derived from it generally cannot be used criminally against that person. The statute still allows prosecution for perjury, false swearing, contempt, or failing to comply with the agreement. That protection would ordinarily survive the collapse or withdrawal of Kohberger's plea. The case being reopened would more likely mean the witness could now be called to testify at trial. Or there could have been informal or conditional cooperation immunity. This is less certain. A prosecutor might have promised something like, we will not prosecute you provided that you cooperate fully, testify truthfully whenever requested, and comply through the final disposition of the case. In that situation, the agreement may still be active because the investigation or prosecution is no longer finished. The witness could be required to testify at the reopened trial, submit to another interview, provide records or evidence, and must remain truthful and consistent. If the witness refuses, lies, conceals important facts, or otherwise materially breaches the agreement, prosecutors may argue that the immunity or non-prosecution promise is void. Wow. But undoing one does not necessarily do the other. The plea deal belongs to the defendant. The immunity agreement belongs to the witness. So crazy. We live in a crazy world right now. And so this is obviously the breaking news, everybody. I am a little bit curious, though. I mean, what does happen next? Right? What does happen next? So we do have a few things, right? So what is the actual legal standard for withdrawing a plea after sentencing in Idaho? What specific false promises and blatant disinformation is Brian Kohberger alleging regarding counsel and discovery? Does the state now have to litigate the full case in the open, or will they fight to keep the plea locked? How much previously sealed material becomes relevant again? Pineapple Diana, thank you so much for the super chat, said, just my opinion, Ann Taylor was her best and cornered, maybe coerced, and choose to take a win with getting him off the death penalty. I think Bethany was given immunity. It all goes forward. Liz Gaspari said, one perp with balaclava walked out the sliding back door, signed Wanka, P.S., with a chunk of hair ripped out in Ethan's hand. How? Beyond Reasonable Doubt 3 said Xana's mom, Bethany, and the Chapins. Lovely Me said, Brian, remember the truth is on your side. So is Jesus. Stand firm in the truth, so firm that you might die for it. Worth it for your soul. Evil does not win in the end. Fuck all those soulless cowards. Damn. Lovely Me, bringing the heat tonight. Thank you so much for the super chat. As I was reading that, I thought about the part of Brian's statement where he said, my actual innocence is the truth. Dana, Red Sonia, Gigi, Yvonne, Pineapple Diana, Sweet PB said, weird seeing Ethan Chapin's name in Brian Kohberger's handwriting. I had that same thought, Sweet PB. I thought to myself, does Brian Kohberger even know that, man? Brian Kohberger's having to write about somebody else's death, potentially, that he was framed for, and having to write Ethan Chapin in his withdrawal of a guilty plea after being coerced to confess to capital murder. Mrs. Birdie's in the house. 0 F's given. Down the rabbit hole to hell. Garden of Hidden Truths. Duck Duck Sleuth, thank you for the super chat, said, Brian Kohberger intends on representing himself. Is it possible he's filing an appeal/plea reversal based on misrepresentation? Food for thought. So I do have the petition for post-conviction relief pulled up here. and we can go ahead and check this out. So you see, this is the petition for post-conviction relief. This was filed today. The petitioner alleges place of detention if in custody, Idaho Maximum Security Institution, Ada County Courthouse. Case number. What was he convicted of? 4 counts of capital murder and felony burglary. He was sentenced July 23rd, 2025. Life without parole plus 10 years. Check whether a finding of guilty was made after the plea of guilty. Did you appeal from the judgment of conviction or the imposition of sentence? No. State concisely all the grounds on which you base your application for post-conviction relief. Use additional sheets if necessary. Right here. Right here, Brian Kohberger states crystal clearly the grounds that he's basing his application for post-conviction relief. The first thing he wrote was ineffective assistance of counsel during criminal proceedings. Now, I will say Ann Taylor herself did state a couple of times throughout these proceedings that she did not have time or the resources or the evidence or any of the files needed to effectively represent her client. So I don't necessarily think or believe right away that that's Brian saying Ann Taylor just sucks at her job. Ann Taylor has said that herself and got it on the record. The second thing is the plea not knowingly or voluntarily entered because it was induced by unkept promises. Man, I really hope that that comes out. The third thing is the plea not voluntarily entered because of threats asserted by petitioner's legal counsel. So, you know, this might just be something rather interesting to go back and take a look at when we see Brian Kohberger full plea deal sentencing. I'm trying to find the part where Brian stands up on the bottom here, so forgive me. I just want to... Right here. So let's all just remember, Brian Kohberger is saying right now that the plea was not voluntarily entered because of threats asserted by the petitioner's legal counsel. And here we go. If I remember correctly, going off of just memory, I remember Judge Hippler said some language to Brian along the lines of, I just want to make sure you understand this and you're doing this willfully. So let's refresh our memories on this. There's no sound. Sorry, guys.
And when I the plea today, Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you informed
Christ.
your client of the importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today?
I have.
Have you apprised your client of any and all offers and counter offers and answered his questions about those?
Yes,
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, I need to ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning still. I do this to ensure that so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily. And I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason I don't accept your plea, then it is possible that your statement.
Well said, Niall McGuire, saying you could just tell that he trusts them too much. Sherlock said Hitler's crazy work, the nerve.
Today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. And now while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in the matter not given before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Kohberger, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated. All right. Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed substantive questions? Let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right. I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000 and a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder. The consequences include a fine of up to $50,000, a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on each of those counts.
What a great comment, Heather. What a nasty little humiliation move. Yeah, don't bother standing while you plead guilty to murder. You're right. That's something that probably, and even myself, it went over my head. That was strange. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but for the convenience, you can sit. But whether that's normal or not, I just feel like Brian Kohberger standing up and going, yes. It just, the body language. I know when you go back and you watch stuff, it always hits a little bit different, but that was a good call out, Heather. So I'll let this go for another minute or so, and then we'll get back to these new filings here for post-conviction relief.
In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime, to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment, to operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Yes.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
And do you understand the nature of the charges that you've been charged with that I understand you're going to plead guilty today to?
Yes.
As as I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Yes.
Has anyone promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty?
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Let's just pause right there. Plea was not voluntarily entered because of threats asserted by petitioner's legal counsel. Continuing on, prior to this petition, have you filed with respect to this conviction for any federal court for habeas corpus? No. Any other petitions, motions, or applications in any other court? No. If your application is based upon the failure of counsel to adequately represent you, state concisely and in detail what counsel failed to do in representing your interest. A, failure to disclose of or review exculpatory evidence, for example, the unknown hair in Chapin's hand during plea discussions. B, counsel's insistence that petitioner's plea need not be truthful. So his counsel insisted that the petitioner's plea need not be truthful, despite petitioner's vehement denial of actual guilt. Promises made by counsel regarding LWAP status, for example, the immediate contact, visits, freedom of movement, employment, and elaborate lies of death row life. I wonder what they told him, dude. Jeez. Are you seeking to leave preceded in forma? I'm not even going to try to say that word. Pauperis. That is requesting the proceeding of be at county expense. Yes. Are you requesting the appointment of counsel to represent you in this case? If your answer is yes, you must fill out a motion for the appointment of counsel and supporting affidavit. Yes. State specifically with the relief you seek a withdrawal of guilty plea. This was done on the 22nd of July, just as a refresher. There he signed it. And this is what I had read in the beginning, that same statement that I did on the prior slide. Now we have another motion and affidavit in support for appointment of counsel. Comes now Brian C. Kohberger, defendant in the above entitled matter, and moves this honorable court to grant the motion for appointment of counsel for the reasons more fully set forth herein and in the affidavit in support of motion for appointment of counsel. This would be within the Idaho Department of Corrections and under the direct care, custody, and control of Warden D. Governor, Warden of the Idaho Governor, the Warden of the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. And that is him just signing that away. And then here is another document. So he's going to have all of this now taken care of. It is entered, signed, dated, and has made its way into the mainstream media. Jesus. What a whirlwind playing out in this case. And yet the mainstream media is still framing Brian. After reading that, they're framing him as this desperate killer that still is just going to try to walk. And so one of the things that I think we have to prepare ourselves for is that the story and the stories, I believe the majority of them are going to be the same. And the timing of this happening, as far as from a mainstream media perspective, they have Netflix, the biggest platform in the world that we know, we can assume, actually, I guess we don't technically know, but given the trailer and given how every other documentary that's come out about this case or season or series or whatever it is now, it has not swayed away from the PCA that was written 4 years ago. Brian Kohberger is obviously addressing this fact head on in his written statements. But I think that a big, big piece of that is that the people who have spent years calling not only anybody with questions about this case, some disrespectful fool, conspiracy theorist, whatever other label you want to throw on it, pro-burger, we have to remember that so many of those people's identity is now tied to this case. Okay, so Brian Kohberger has this statement that goes through the New York Times. It's very clean, it's polished, it's well written, as we stated. The court then has the filing land on the same day. I want to know if Brian Kohberger is already about to, maybe not already about to, I want to know if Brian's about to continue to talk. Because the tone that Brian said, I welcome the state to take this case to trial, as well as throw the death penalty back on the table. Why would you ever go back to being silent after that? He's specifically calling out the hair in Ethan Chapin's hand. So I believe when you look at what Dr. Turvey said compared to Cy Ray, what Dr. Turvey may know about it might be more accurate if Brian Kohberger is bringing up. And then I think about Chris Whitcomb bringing that up in Broken Plea. But what was attached to other statements now made within Broken Plea, and specifically Chris Whitcomb, it does make you scratch your head. You have to think back, what was it about that black SUV that he kept talking about? What was it about the spare bedroom being a big deal? The bracelet with blood on it down in that spare bedroom. So it certainly doesn't feel like that sequence is an accident by any means. At all. Duck Sleuth, thank you for the super chat. Said so many people shitting right now. Has any of the family spoken out about the news? I believe that the Goncalves family has. I don't have it on a slide, but I will read the statement here. If you've not seen this, there's actually a couple of them from other people, but I'll go ahead and read this. This is from Steve Goncalves. Steve Goncalves says, quote, "We're not scared of it." And he told the Idaho Statesman by phone on Monday that I've always stood with the work of the FBI agents and other people. If he wants to fight for the death penalty, that's exactly what we'll go for. And that's what he's facing. There's so much evidence against him in this case. So we're not scared of a trial, not one bit. Then there was also a statement that came from the Latah County Sheriff's Office, and it says, we are saddened by the recent news that the admitted murderer of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xander Kernodle continues his efforts to victimize their families and friends. Our office is prepared to defend the well-deserved convictions and sentences and ensure justice prevails. No further statements will be made at this time. The G family also did post something on their Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and upload this one so that you guys can read along with me. It'll take 1 second. What do you guys think about the Latah County Sheriff's statement saying that we're not going to comment any further? Dude, I know it's hard to talk about this because obviously Brian Kohberger's statement is it's such a massive deal that it's hard to think about anything else. But I just think about what this could lead to. Like, who's really about to be on trial right now? The Latah County Sheriff's Department has just made a statement that looks so suspicious, in my opinion. We're not going to comment on it any further. And an admitted murderer is still victimizing these families. Come on. That's crazy. So here is a statement from the G family as well. It should be popping up here in 1 second. All righty, let me pull it up. All right. First off, we are not surprised, even though Bill Thompson said with the plea deal, all appeals would be waived. We knew that wasn't factual. Anyway, his time to plea was running out, September to be exact. Goncalves' family statement: the mosquito you just can't seem to swat. That is what Kohberger and his following have become to this family. We read Mr. Baker's story, and he must be so proud of himself for speaking with Mr. Kohberger, because the story didn't have much else in it other than a guilty man claiming he is innocent once again. Nothing in the story or in Kohberger's statement does he allude to the fact that he did not knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently admit to murdering the 4 victims of this tragedy: Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. Quite to the contrary, he appeared in court in a hearing in front of a judge with his 4 lawyers. He did this after deciding not to leave his fate and the facts of the case up to a jury to decide his guilt. He never cried wolf or claimed he was uninformed, pressured, or that there were issues with the discovery that he and his counsel had for 2 years that he thought should have been challenged. He admitted to guilt and asked whether he actually was guilty, and he said yes. I am sure there will be a hearing, as this is how the legal process works, and the defendant will get another day in court. A nice break from his solitary confinement, getting to go for a ride, maybe some different food, photos taken, and the attention all back on him and his, quote, innocence. The real issue is that if as much energy was put into honoring the victims in this case as trying to set a guilty man free, there would be statues of the victims on every corner. Statues of the victims on every corner, with parks and days honoring their ultimate sacrifice, quote, their lives at the hands of narcissists. Regardless of how this turns out, our family is 100% ready in actual trial this time. Let's go. We are confident he will get the death penalty that he escaped by pleading guilty the first time around. Moving on, LOL. Just an absolute waste of time and taxpayers' money. It's a disgrace. I guess I better get me a Death Row Records shirt for every day of the week now. Whew. Okay. I'm not surprised. I don't think anybody else in here should be surprised that that is the type of statement that obviously this family has been very consistent in their messaging. But I don't know. When I say this, I'm just thinking out loud, so it could be completely off. But I just think with how consistent this tone has been and to how much they seem to have, Steve G has said that he's heard rumors that Bill Thompson's got Alzheimer's. I mean, you'll see Steve G get fired up at Bill Thompson, and to just have the consistent statements that they do, I'm not sure if that's purposefully doing this because it grabs the attention of us. It gets us talking about it. Does that make sense? Because one would think, obviously, you want the right person in jail, clearly. But also, I mean, Brian Kohberger, we just looked at the papers. He does state that and alludes to the fact that he was coerced and lied to and threatened and was not knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently admitting to any of them. We just looked at that paperwork. The real issue is that if as much energy was put into honoring the victims in this case as trying to set a guilty man free, there would be statues of the victim on every corner with parks and days honoring their ultimate sacrifice, their lives at the hands of narcissists. Regardless of how this turns out, our family's 100% ready. an actual trial this time. Let's go. Wow. It just seems at the hands of narcissists. I'll put this full screen so you guys could see this. If you'd like to screenshot it, go ahead. You can read it on your own time. I'll take the comments down for a second. It's like there's things that make sense why they would say it. Then there's other things that, and you guys know if you tuned in, I don't go super hard towards statements like this. I read them, and my opinion is that it just feels like it's been so consistent that it either must be to keep attention on the case, or they really are getting other information about stuff that we don't know about. I mean, if they're getting their information from Cy Ray about there's so much evidence that the public has not seen that he promises us that it would completely reframe and reshape how we see this case. And there's things that the public doesn't know about. I mean, if they do know about it, I don't know. Hot Girl Bummer, thank you for the super chat. Said, interesting statement considering it is exactly the thing the G's wanted and believed was taken from them. A trial with death on the table. Sluther Dare said 400 million for them to go against it. I agree. The victims deserve the truth to come out. I don't know if we're necessarily the statement about all of the effort put on trying to get a guilty man free. Man, I hate that phrasing. I think it's rather, let's have the right people in prison. And if there was somebody that was wrongfully put in prison for the crime, well, guess what? That means that the wrong people are in there, the wrong person's in there, and that there are murderers, vicious murderers, that clearly have been able to get away with other things, given the fact of a cleanup, given the fact that they've scared or threatened or have deep enough pockets to prevent people from speaking out. Refrigerators that have DNA in it or other evidence in it just so happen to break. They get the chain of custody hidden. It goes from the FBI to Othram, then back, and they don't have the chain of custody on that. There's evidence that's withheld, exculpatory evidence to that fact. Blue-Eyed Candy, thank you so much for the super chat, said, Brian was asked only one answer questions at his plea and sentencing. Ann Taylor and Bill Thompson, AT and BT didn't want him to allocute because his autism would probably have him telling the truth as to why he was actually pleading, and they couldn't chance it. It's another factor with him being on the autism spectrum. What does that do to maybe things that they told him or said to him? It's a unfortunate and terrible thing to think about. Did they take advantage of it? Did they word it in such a way? I don't know. None of us are ever going to know. We weren't there, unless Brian himself does state something like that. But the allocution is so strange to this day that he never did. It's me, Gary said they are so classy. I roll eyeballs, are stuck now. Right. That's right, Sherlock. Steve was mad that a, quote, jury of peers should decide. He said that one man shouldn't be able to play God, and now he's upset. That could now happen. I mean, he did say an actual trial this time. Let's go. We're confident he will get the death penalty. Lucine Fox, thank you for the super chat, said, if there was more, Santa would have said so. There's nothing. I think Cy was confused as to who he was speaking to. And Tiff SD, thank you for the super chat, said, this is going to be good. Finally, maybe we will get the truth. Dylan should be afraid. Like I said, pucker factor times a million. It's all so insane. Now, one of the things that I would like to, and the timing of this is pretty crazy, because Brian Kohberger's role in this and how he got into this position has always been something that's perplexed myself, and I know many of you in here. How is it that this tiny piece of trace DNA has everything, play out the way that it did with his father's Q-tip in Pennsylvania, him getting tracked across the country, no connection, no motive, all of the things we've discussed over the course of the last year and some change, or just about a year since he was sentenced and took the plea. Certainly since the documents started dropping out where they're showing us these things. No motive, no murder weapon. We've talked in this channel a ton about, well, Brian Kohberger must have been known to somebody in law enforcement. And was he set up? Was he framed? Is this just a straight up wrongful conviction case? Now, I went ahead and I was able to purchase something that was FOIA'd from another creator. I don't believe many people have seen this at all. So thank you to that creator for sharing this. And it is the Brian Kohberger Pullman Police Department files. Specifically, all of the social media stuff that the Pullman Police Department went and screenshotted around Brian Kohberger and people saying that he interviewed for the Pullman Police Department. This zip file contains a lot of social media screenshots that prove police were watching for mentions of Kohberger and perhaps any social media posts they may have felt were threatening towards the police. The social media results, PDFs, look for terms that were matching Kohberger or matching assistantship. And the first PDF is 91 pages alone. Within all these files, you'll see a bunch of social media screenshots of various content creators talking about the case. So I have a few here that I will be pulling up, and we're going to go through a few of these. But just to give you a glimpse of how much this case is being monitored, this is rather telling. Why are they so worried if people know about certain information with Brian Kohberger and the Pullman Police Department? So we have a bunch of people here. Oops, let me put this full screen. Now, there is a lot of information in these, but Brian Kohberger applied for an internship with the Pullman PD in fall of 2022. When I read this, I was seriously thinking about the intentions he had with applying at Pullman Police. Suspect Brian Kohberger applied for an internship at Pullman Police, right? And it goes on. You guys get the point. This person just said, fuck off, Pullman Police. Kohberger thanked Jenkins for his interview. Quote, Brian, great to meet and talk with you as well. Jenkins responded the same day. Pullman Police and WSU spokesperson declined to answer questions or provide documents if he got the position. Now, there is a handful of other odd things. Okay, so in this is a PowerPoint presentation that talks about their Citizen Academy, ride days, range day signups, any current events. Idaho prosecutors disclosing information about internal affairs investigation that's related to the officer on the Kohberger case. Giglio or Brady list is a list compiled usually by a prosecutor's office or a police department containing the names and details of law enforcement officers who have had sustained incidents of untruthfulness, criminal convictions, candor issues, or some other type of issue, placing their credibility into question. So they are absolutely aware that the public knowing about Brian Kohberger applying or just anything that ties Brian Kohberger and the Pullman PD to them is something they need to be aware of. Here are the raw files of the emails. I am contacting you in response to your application for the doctoral level graduate research assistantship for public safety at WSU and your interest in working for the Pullman Police Department. Dr. Macon from WSU shared your application documents with me and agreed that a chance for me to talk with each of you would be beneficial. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Dr. David Macon. There's a couple of things, though, that I want to make sure that I show you guys because there's messages about when this news was about to break. That's pretty interesting. Thad, this is Mia Bautista, city attorney for Moscow. Are you able to talk? Hello, Mia. I'm not right now. Meeting stacked up this afternoon. I will call you as soon as I have an opening. Okay, I left you a lengthy voicemail hoping we can visit before you release any records related to Kohberger. Understood. The conversation goes on. Darby Baldwin. It's a weird way to start a text, but I need to go pick up a kid from school and run her into quick care. Is it okay if I work the rest of my day from home after I get all that accomplished? Yes. Thank you. Quick care was very slow. Got her back to Moscow. Waited over an hour in the waiting room and another 30 plus minutes in the room. And then the pharmacy was closed for an emergency. Just got back home and logged on. Slow care. Definitely was today. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Other than hopefully introducing CJ and Corp and your IA presentation, is there anything you'd add to Monday's meeting agenda? Did you contact the people for the Citizen Academy yet? Which is the slideshow I just showed you about. I called them. I haven't sent an email yet. I was waiting to hear back from a couple people about email addresses. Well, what's up? Stephanie wanted to be the person to contact them and wasn't happy with me after Greg told her I was having you do it. That's interesting. I've been the one contacting participants in the past. Yeah, she reminded me that she asked if she could contact them, and I must have told her yes and then had you do it, so she wasn't happy with me. Weird. I guess I still don't really understand the role she's playing and everything. Jake says, can she send me the emails? She wants to run it. That's fine. I'll send the roster to her and Greg when I hear back from the last few and get it finalized. Jake says, like she does Pack, I guess. I already have the whole email drafted. Okay. Things have definitely changed about how involved she is in everything, but whatever you want to do is fine. I just need to be clear, I guess, on what is and isn't my role. So as I'm reading this, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, we need to go back and see, who is that person? What are they connected to? Why is she so adamant about, I'm going to handle everything released about Brian Kohberger and the Citizen Academy and the partnership with Pullman Police Department and WSU? I assumed things were as they have been, but obviously I don't know. Previous to her taking over his chair, I handled pretty much all administrative type stuff related to the PAC. We didn't have anyone running things entirely on that end as it's a city committee. Like I said, I just need to understand what she's going to be handling and what I'll be doing because the two seem to be intersecting a lot. I know you guys have been meeting a lot and things, which is all new to me. So just let me know if you want what you want things to look like, and I'll adjust my stuff accordingly. Okay. This is where it gets interesting, Hive. People are definitely picking up on the fact that Kohberger applied to be our research fellow. Okay. So when you read this, everybody, all they said was that Brian Kohberger applied. Look, here is the email that Dr. David Macon sent with, there was 3 other applications on there. Gary Jenkins met with Brian Kohberger and replied saying, thank you. It was very nice to meet and talk with you. But the way that Darby words this message, tell me if you guys are picking up what I'm putting down and what Darby says people are picking up. Because this seems very specific. People are definitely picking up on the fact Kohberger applied to be our research fellow. What does picking up on it mean? Does that mean, so this is the next day at 1:20 in the morning, everybody. Their conversation stopped at 10:29 on the 5th, but at January 6th at 1:20 in the morning, she has the feeling and is compelled enough to say, people are definitely picking up on the fact that Kohberger applied to be our research fellow. I already forwarded you a couple of media inquiries specific to that. I assume the gag order isn't relevant because it's not part of the criminal case, but I am also seeing buzz about it on social media. FYI. Thanks. We were not talking to media, just playing it safe with the gag order. Copy. So it's okay for me to come up with a canned response for those inquiries? Guys, do you realize how huge this is? This is massive. This is massive. We have a paper trail of Brian Kohberger applying to this Pullman Police Department and them knowing about it, and all of the stuff that they do with the Moscow Police Department, with the Quad Cities Task Force, with so many other things that go on in that small area, being Moscow and Pullman. The fact that we have what the partnership was, who the professor was, what department Brian was in, when he applied, the emails of him meeting with Chief Gary Jenkins. And now we got Darby and Jake saying it's okay for me to come up with a canned response for those inquiries, and that Jake said they were just playing it safe with the gag order. Easy Patsy is right, Ava Moreno. Jake says, I was forwarding all of that to Matt Young. Oh, okay. I know there has been at least one records request for his fellowship application. I'm not sure what we have. I assume that was originally emailed to Gary, or how the gag order impacts that, but FYI. And Splendid Melancholy, thank you for the super chat, said, guess he may not have been the perfect candidate. Ah, how the turntables. Just grab a drink of water. We've had several, and I found his application and essay in email archives, and we gave it to Sally. Well, you better protect and keep record of those archives, because I have a feeling that those will definitely be combed through. Darby said, okay, can we still release that? Jake said, I don't think so. I sent you Thad's response in an email. I saw it. This is crazy, Hive. So once it's considered an employment record, they can't have that anyways, if I'm reading that correctly. That's what I read too. Okay. So that's considered an employment record. They're giving canned responses. They're worried at 1:30 in the morning that the public is picking up on the fact that Brian Kohberger applied to be our fellowship partner. Uh-oh. Right. And guys, you do realize that the only reason why we think that Brian Kohberger wasn't employed by Pullman is because this is the background conversation to them coming out and saying that. This is literally the background conversation of why they are saying that they need a lawyer to be present before they talk about it. They can't confirm, they can't deny. So what we're going to say is that he just applied to it, because that's all that people could see. But since it's considered an employment record, they can't have that anyways. I'm not sure if that's because it falls under the gag order. However, you can hear them talking through that entire progression of people finding out, I don't know how to handle it. Do we give them the canned response? I just want you to be aware of it. And they got forwarded an email, and the way that they interpreted it was it's considered an employment record. They can't have that anyways. And everybody already had the information about the application, which is what makes me think that this is specific to an employment record. Let's continue, shall we? Sorry, looks like our VoIP is pushing notifications late again. I don't know what the family statement was. The article I saw seemed to imply Kohberger was arrested months after our burglary, but the Moscow murders occurred just a year after our incident. I'm going to read that again. Chris Engel, sorry, it looks like our VoIP is pushing notifications late again. I don't know what the family statement was. The article I saw seemed to imply Kohberger was arrested months after our burglary, but the Moscow murders occurred just over a year after our incident. Yeah, the year should be clear. I reached out to the digital team on that. Thanks for letting me know. The family said, my family and I have been frustrated that the case was not investigated more in depth or resolved. I really want to give y'all a chance to respond to that. Appreciate that. Okay, let me know, and I'll have the team added to the digital write-up, and I'm here if you ever want to chat more. Thanks for engaging even on Christmas Eve. Pullman Police Department exhausted all leads investigating the burglary that occurred on October 10th, 2021. After the initial response securing and searching the residence, a primary suspect was identified, and a search warrant was served at the suspect's residence. We share the victim's frustration that sufficient evidence for charges was not available to hold this offender accountable for the lasting traumatic impact made on the victim's ability to feel safe in her own home. Hey, Marty, sorry for the delay. I just got back into cell coverage. Corporal Brett Payne is the lead on the Kohberger case. It's so awesome to be able to see all of the behind the scenes messages. Guys, let's just take a second too. I haven't done this yet because there's a time to obviously pat ourselves on the back and take a moment and just be like, damn, we have been grinding at this case. And I haven't done that yet, not on purpose, but amongst all of the holy shit, I can't believe this is happening feelings. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to the Hive. Everybody that's tuned in that has, posted a Hive Mind find in our Discord, left a comment, and has been in search of finding the real story of this case, the real crime in this case. So go toward to you all. Thank you so much. This is obviously not just me doing that. That's my favorite thing about this community. This is us doing it. It's the Hive that is working to figure this out and put pressure on these public officials to do the right thing. Do the right thing. Find the truth. Nothing but the truth. And I think that anybody who says that the Idaho 4 community, that includes the Hive and many other channels on YouTube, if anybody wants to say that we're not making a difference, they're sorely mistaken, because I certainly believe that we are. Big time. Now, I'm going to read a couple more of these, but I have an entire zip file of so many of these, and I just got this today, and I was like, damn, what are the odds of this? What are the odds of this that Brian Kohberger says, you know what, let's go to trial, throw the death penalty back on it. My actual innocence is the truth. And we're able to now see some of the behind the scenes messages being chatted about. It's funny how stuff works out like that, isn't it? It's amazing, though. RJ Loft, anything notable happened today? Regarding what? Water main breaks, moose sighting, aliens landed. I'm not sure about any of those, but we did have a report of a water main, a report of water on the street surface on Davis. Snow, yada, yada, yada. My Goonie face hit the socials again. That's notable. Kohberger is going to plead guilty to all counts and avoid the death penalty. June 30th, 2025. Bid opens 7-2. Kohberger plea deal. Now, here is some of the social media stuff that I had talked about before I had opened up this zip file. Chris Engel, can you screenshot all the messages to KK regarding her disclosure? Can you send them to me? Here's what I sent to Erin. Some of her messages came through multiple times, so the actual thread is a lot longer. Do you guys take reports for real, or you just brush them off? I was graped by one of your officers. He He was reporting for my ex-boyfriend being loud. He took my ex-boyfriend on hold in his car while he held me down in my bed and was graped and bleeding. I apologize, Hive. I have not read through all of these zip files, but Jesus, she's clearly making quite the allegation, and I'm sorry for any maybe younger ears of people watching this. I did not know that it was so blatantly said like that. I hope you take these type of allegations really seriously. This was back in 2016. This police department is failing our women. I don't feel comfortable reporting after your dismissal of several women's reports. Look up these. And I'm just going to kind of scroll through these so that that word's not on the screen. But I laid at the end of my bed crying, Jesus. Okay, I'm going to go to a different one. You guys get the point. That's awful. Jesus. Sorry. Pullman Police Department congratulates the City of Moscow Police Department on this arrest. We thank them for their dedication and diligence in offering justice to the families of these young victims. If you have any information about this subject, his activities, or this case, please contact the Moscow Police Department tip line. Any information may be helpful as this case moves forwards, and might we add an edit of, because right now they can't even place him in the house. He's got no connection to the victims, no motive. We don't know where the murder weapon is. We're going to end up finding and linking him to his father's DNA found on a Q-tip 2,000 miles away, and it'll show up on a knife sheath that may or may not have been in the original photos with no chain of custody on said DNA. He will then be threatened and coerced into a plea deal after being taken through a prison and shown an 8x8 cell and lied to about all of the terrible things that happen to death row prisoners, where we then equate him to a small toddler debating to get on a roller coaster at a theme park and scared to ride it or not. He then will have multiple docuseries made about him and against him, slandering who he is and defaming him for a story that was written in the PCA that now that the public has seen hundreds and hundreds of documents and audio files and video clips, that we still have no idea who committed this. So please, yes, do let us know about any information about the subject, as our case is about to fail miserably on the world stage. That's what it should have said as an edit, but it doesn't. So this is this looks like it's an article about Brian Kohberger being arrested. They're totally monitoring social media. So anybody who thinks that they don't, they clearly do. Surprise, surprise. So can they see deleted and hidden? Huh. Now this one's kind of crazy, because this is a lot of social media posts that start coming up. This is 91 pages of social media posts where they are searching for Kohberger and or that partnership. Mike Callahan, didn't Kohberger have one of those too? I mean, seriously, look at how concerned they are. I'm just going to kind of scroll through these live. Go Tiango, way to find J is for Justice podcast, way to find Kohberger. Dude, the Hive is totally on a list somewhere. It's funny, but it's terrifying at the same time. Jeez. Look at all these people's comments. Brian Kohberger lies about doing something else for his alibi. That would be perjury, a felony. And at this point, Kohberger hasn't legally broken any laws. Nothing you've said will convict Brian Kohberger, and repeatedly saying that won't convict him. Would you like to refute those? I'm interested in your opinion on it. There were survivors. I'm glad you're following the Idaho 4 kids. Which police narrative? Interested in what you're referring to. What doesn't add up? Everyone equals frozen shock phase. They tried hard, though. They had touch DNA, which could be sperm, oils, blood under Snap, under Maddie May. His car at the crime scene, and DM saw him. Refute these. Oh, we will. Certainly. WSU Pullman fires Brian Kohberger. 2 altercations and failing perf plan standards pre-arrest for Idaho 4. Well, you guys get the point. I'll go through those and I'll pick some of the more interesting ones out. But, I mean, very interesting to see that. And, guys, at the end of the day, it is a massive deal that it doesn't matter who it is, but you put anybody in Brian Kohberger's position right now who's been at the mercy of the mainstream media with how much they've said happened, that the documents and the evidence just said the complete opposite or nothing to the sort, to finally say something the week before a giant Netflix documentary drops is crazy. Like I said, I'll never forget where I was when I read this news today. Thank you to everybody who did tune in. Thank you to everybody who subscribes to the Hive, who likes the streams, and, you know, buckle up, because I think there's going to be a lot more stuff that starts to come to light. I don't think that Brian Kohberger's done talking. I wouldn't be surprised if we see other people start to come out and talk now, just as this case, as it has in the past, starts to drag out where we might not think anything's going to happen. Bam. Brian Kohberger says, I want to withdraw my guilty plea. I was lied to, coerced, and threatened. So let's go to trial. Put the death penalty back on the table. My innocence is the truth. And again, thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody who does share this out, who researches, who submits Hive Mind Finds, who's in here every night commenting. I am going to go through these super chats now. Bear with me, because there's also these animations that are newer that I don't see on my end. So they just stack up. I don't see them until I go to a different screen. So Dana, thank you for the jewels. Sergeant Zem, welcome to Hive Plus. Bellamicia can't be redacted, coming in with hella gold coins. Good to see you, Bellamicia. What the Duck 42, welcome to Hive Plus. Dana again. We got Matt P. It's me, Gary. Turn down the bass. And thank you to Birdie and Mrs. Birdie for giving us this particular platform. Tiff SD, Toasted Goblin 12, thank you. Duck Sleuths gifting out Hive Plus. Splendid Melancholy. I've read this one before, but what a perfectly timed comment saying, guess he may not have been the perfect candidate since he's speaking out now. Duck Sleuth. The Cryptid Sleeps. Dana, Baby Girl, and Love and Other Habits said, what if the state held on to some planted DNA and would use it now, or worse, have some CCTV? Sai said overwhelming evidence. We'll have to see that in trial. I hope this does go to trial. I really do. Because I just feel like, while it may be hard to think to yourself there's not going to be more and more continued BS, Brian Kohberger not saying anything until now and looking at the way that it was worded and all the other things that have come out, just what with what we have access to. Who knows? I mean, maybe Cy Ray isn't telling the truth. Maybe. How do we know? Or maybe he is. And at the end of the day, we want the right people behind bars. We have not seen anything that shows the right person is. Chanel Pottery said, if this goes back to court, his plea can be used against him. However, the prosecution lack of case statements will also be used in court. True. If, you could have your opening statement just saying it could be Bill Thompson. We could not put Brian Kohberger in 1122. And I will admit that. 4 a.m. I think it could have been dreaming, saying mainstream media is going to retry his guilt before admitting wrong. Tiffany, thank you for the silver star. Riley Church said, I sent an email earlier today that is really relevant to what we're talking about now. The families, if you get a chance to look at it, not right now, there's a big PDF file attached. Free BK. Yes, thank you, Riley. I will check that out. Thank you for the super chat, Riley. Hot Girl Bummer said, interesting statement considering it is exactly the thing the G's wanted and believed was taken from them, a trial with death on the table. Not as dumb as you look, said, okay, Hive, we got to get this guy a cousin Vinny or we all show up for his trial. Thank you to Tasha, Medred, John Newsom, Shay. Bex Tat said, I wonder if Dylan's shitting a golden chicken right now. Heart of Gold says, Birdie, do you have a copy of Brian Kohberger's PCR affidavit? We went through that. Bex Tats, the thing that stuck out to me most was that he talked about the hair in Ethan's hand. Irish Eyes, thank you. Pi Norman said, I hope Dylan had a sweet day. Pineapple Diana said, he's heard us loud. We've been acknowledged. Sabrina, thank you for being a member of Hive Plus for 2 months. Big Lies, Dreamin' Eyes said, go to Ward goes to Brian on this occasion. Hot Girl Bummer said, 3 months here and today is everything I hoped the Hive would witness. Tracy, welcome to Hive Plus. Chaos and Christina, thank you for the super chat, said he has silently maintained his innocence for years. This is so strategic. He knows what he's up against. He's confident and he's got something big. LFG. Pineapple Diana said, I hope they do prove that he was lied to. All I know is he's like, hold my beer. Well, y'all drink and checkmate. You bizarre. 1 year to the day. Genius. And on the precipice of the Netflix documentary. I wonder how many people are going to look at that documentary with a little bit different viewpoint now that might have been on the fence after seeing this. Beyond reasonable doubt, $1 million question, $8 million question. What was he promised for that plea deal? True to it. Jen, Dana, Bellamicia said, I'm so happy that Brian Kohberger has filed his post-conviction relief. He did this by hand per se, and I'm sure he has requested the court to appoint a new appellate attorney. That means AT is no longer his attorney. Tracy, thank you for the jewels. Deb, all the new members, all of the gifts. Dana said, just a thank you for doing all what you and the mods do. I'm so glad I found the Hive. Well, Dana, thank you for being a part of it. I'm glad that you found us as well. And thank you for the big super chat. MySpace Queen TT with a laughing disco. Accomplished day. Great to see you. Hey, Birdie, maybe we should send Brian the timeline, the alternate theory, and Yessie's correct name so he can correctly subpoena her. Well, I'd be shocked if somebody isn't monitoring it from his team. I mean, we could absolutely send the timeline. I think that should be done. Accomplished day. You should do it. Send a screenshot of it being sent out to his team, and it's so comprehensive and it's so detailed with everybody's statements. I don't think it would hurt by any means. Polar Life Force, Sweet PB, Dana, Carrie Scott, Sleuth and Sweetheart said, this is unbelievable news and a huge step forward. It feels so validating to see all of our effort and research actually paying off. Amen. Well said. Carrie, OG Jessica, welcome to Hive Plus. Dana, thank you again. Sheesh, Dana, Tons of gold coins tonight. You rock. Blue Eyed Candy gifted out 5 Hive Plus memberships. Florida Girl, welcome to Hive Plus. 420s Mang and Dana with the high five and the jewels. It feels great. It really does, Hive. It feels good. It feels validating, as many of you have said. But again, I think it's important. I don't know what it's going to look like. Let's just make sure we keep our head on a swivel. Who knows what they might try to sneak under the radar now with this being the headline, right? But great job, all of us, all of you. And Aaron Riley creates. Good to see you, Aaron. Aaron and I have been working on something too in the background about Brian Kohberger. It's rather crazy. I've almost made it now my focus to figure out how Brian Kohberger even got involved in this mess. Zero fucks given. Sincerely, Gen X said, Bertie, I was ready to go in regarding the Tim DeWolf, aka Spicoli interview, but had to pivot for this. Let's go. Thank you, Zero F's given. I appreciate the super chat. Appreciate you hanging out. Thriving in Chaos member for 2 months said, just wanted to say I love the Hive. I'm so happy for you and Mrs. Birdie. I have 3 daughters, 5 and under. Girls are the best. Oh, yeah. November is coming up. Me and Mrs. Birdie had a fantastic weekend celebrating our 2-year wedding anniversary. We are moving this weekend as well, which is awesome. I'm excited. I'll have a new studio set up, so stay tuned for that. I'll be able to put a lot of the Hive artwork, and I will also have the UPS mailbox set up. I know there's been a lot of people asking for the PO box, so I'm working on that. But yes, very exciting things happening, not just for me and Mrs. Birdie, but the Hive and everybody that's looking into this case. Michael Lawrence said, what's to feel good about? Now, if he gets out, who pays for the murder? Well, that's kind of a black pill way of looking at it, in my opinion. You have a point. Don't get me wrong. I mean, ideally, at least it's somewhere to start. It's a big place to start, in my opinion, that if they had the wrong guy and it was open and shut and the news was talking about it, think about how much more accountability this is going to lead to in an investigation to get justice for these 4 victims. The real murderers, yeah. That's how I view it. You know, the other thing too that I felt like it was really important to do is I didn't want to get up here, and this is just my take on it. I didn't want to get up here and be like, you know, I told you, we told you, we told you. You know, we could feel that way. We know we feel that way, but really, this isn't necessarily even, it's not necessarily a full-on victory lap yet. I hope everybody understands that. There's still a lot of stuff that could play out. Who knows the tricks that are up people's sleeves? But seriously, it is a massive deal. It's a big deal. Brian Kohberger's coming out and saying this himself, not just us. But yeah, you don't, you know, I don't know how effective that is to just kind of chest beat and go, you know, crap talk other people. It feels good, but it's not effective. Hopefully, ideally, they can focus on what is being said about the case now and why maybe they need to change their mind and use their opinion and their platforms to switch the opinions of their followers and their people. Michael Lawrence, wipe that dumb smile off your face. Now it's on you if he gets out and he is the one who did it. Oh, Michael. I don't know who pissed in your Cheerios, but what a weird couple of comments. Christ. Cookies Quarter said, the validations to my intuition is real. I'm hyped. I paid that bill. Not I paid that bill. That's funny. Very ironic. But okay, Hive. I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of your evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back out tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central. Lots of stuff planned just to give you guys a little bit of an insight as to what we are looking into. You guys know I've made it one of my most, I guess, time-consuming things to dive into Brian Kohberger and his involvement in the Washington Police Department, or not the Washington, the Pullman Police Department. I saw this in the Hive Mind Finds, and so let me go ahead and play this. This is a rather interesting. It's a rather interesting way to start an interview, and could be a Freudian slip, but this is
Gary Jenkins, Chief Gary Jenkins, longtime law enforcement, was the chief of police in Pullman, Washington, and then he was the chief of police at Washington State University, where Brian Kohberger interned or tried to get an internship. He interviewed with Gary. We're going to talk about that as this show progresses. But Gary, welcome. Let me get right into this, Gary.
He's just like, you got to be kidding me, bro. You got to be kidding me. You just said that he interned here. That's how this starts. Oh, so thank you to who submitted that Hive Mind Find. I'll have that tomorrow on the stream with the name. But you guys rock, sleep good, rest up, and I will see you tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.